so it's really hard to see the camera screen in the bright sunlight. So you might have to go inside to adjust your settings or just look through the viewfinder. For this setting in particular, we are going to focus on shutter speed and then use the light meter to set the corresponding aperture. So I am going to scroll my camera so it's at least 1/1000th of a second. You can experiment and go faster or slower. If your pictures are too dark, you may want to slow down your shutter speed. If they're too bright, you could speed it up. So I'm gonna start by setting my shutter speed this time, which is really hard to see on my screen right now. So you might have to go inside or look through the viewfinder to do that. I can just barely see it. It's set at 1/4000. So I'm just using my light meter, ignoring it right now, and just looking at the shutter speed and setting that number. So I have it set to 1/1000th of a second. And you can go faster, but 1/1000th should be fast enough to freeze motion. And then I have my ISO at 100. If your pictures are too dark, you could increase your ISO a little bit as well. But we're in the bright sunlight, so 100 should be okay. Now I'm going to use my light meter to actually set my f-stop. So we're working kind of backwards than we did the last time. So I have my shutter speed set, that fraction is set to 1/1000th, and now I'm holding the AV plus or minus, tapping the button to take the picture about halfway so I can set up my light meter and put it to 0. So my f-stop ended up being an f14 in this circumstance. There is one final thing you'll want to do when you're shooting fast shutter, and that is on the back of your camera where the timer button is. If you press that down, you want to set your camera to continuous shooting mode. It's the mode that has the 4 rectangles, or is it 3 rectangles there? So it will shoot really quickly instead of pausing in between shots. You want to set your camera on manual focus for this as well. That means you have to focus your camera with the tip of it yourself by looking through the viewfinder. The reason I'm putting it on manual focus is I don't want the camera to have to pause to do autofocus, and it sometimes gets confused when objects are flying quickly in front of it. So all I'm going to do is get my composition set up. Like I said, I have it on a vertical tripod here vertically, and I left room above the cup in this composition so I could capture the splash. And then I'm going to get the cup in focus. I have my continuous shooting on, so it shoots really, really quickly. And now I already metered the light, so now I should be able to just hold down the button and snap pictures really quickly. Now, it may be easier to do this with someone else's help. Take a test shot, make sure it shows up. You can always lighten it a bit in Photoshop when you're done. So anything to capture motion, it might be helpful to have someone hold the button while you pour. So I'm just gonna, because it's only me, I'm gonna hold down the button and just start pouring. You can start to wiggle it, splash it. What might be cool is to do a tea-colored liquid as well. So you can dye your liquids, you could pour coffee. Coffee and creamer work really well. Milk with food coloring looks really, really cool. And I'm gonna now try, I have powdered coffee here that I thought might be kind of cool to add in as well. I'm just gonna recheck the composition. And let's try that again. This should freeze the coffee in midair and maybe get some cool effects. So now I've got the coffee in there. So now I'm gonna pour this again, some water, and see if I can get the browns to pour out here. So let's see what happens now. So get creative with it, have fun, make a mess. Your background's gonna get wet. Okay, keep splashing. So if you destroy one backdrop, just put up another one. You have 2 white ones. It's okay if you ruin both your white backdrops. I prefer white though, just because it's a little bit sharper and brighter. Now you may have seen in some of the examples too, you could do like water balloons, like tape your backdrop up and do a water balloon in front of it. That can be really cool. Clean off the backdrop as best as you can. For this one, I'm going to add water. You could throw fruit or ice into your mixture as well. That could be neat. I'm going to reposition my camera. I'm just zoomed in now to the top part of this. I'm omitting the bottom. So you can choose to do that as well, just to make it a more interesting composition. Make sure you leave room for your splash though. Okay. So you could capture food coloring. Oops, going in. Everything's blowing away. You could purposely focus on the surface of the water to get the food coloring mixing up. You could combine multiple pictures or colors. I'm going to add a little more. So I really just have focused in right here this portion. So the curling up backdrop doesn't really matter for this. Remember, anything you throw in your water to splash is going to show up in the picture because it's going to freeze it with the fast shutter speed. So this would look way better with strawberries or something like that. Try it over and over and over. Whoop, that could be cool too. Okay, let's talk about the camera settings again in the light where we can see them. So I kept my ISO low, put it at a 100, and it was really bright out. I can increase the ISO if my pictures end up looking dark. I am just going to set my shutter speed. I'm ignoring the light meter right now. I'm looking at the shutter speed here. I'm going to set it to at least 1/1000th of a second. If you're breaking a water balloon or something like that, you could go even faster to freeze even more motion. The faster your shutter speed though, the less light that gets in your camera. So you have to keep that in mind. So outside, when I did this, I put it at 1/1000th. That should be plenty fast. If you zoom in and you notice your splashes aren't sharp, you could go faster. But from here now, I tap the button to take the picture, and I meter the light. Whoops. See, I'm already doing our old way. Metering the light is going to change your shutter speed if you don't hold down this button. So I want to keep it at 1/1000th. I'm going to hold the AV plus or minus button now to switch it to the f-stop. And I'm going to tap the button where I take the picture. And I'm actually going to meter the light by changing my f-stop. So I'm indoors, so right now it's still too dark. Outside, it should probably go right to the center. It can't get any wide open. The lens can't open up any wider, excuse me. So I'm gonna hit the ISO, and I'll show you. If I increase my ISO, hold down my AV plus or minus. Oh, still is really, see, this picture is gonna just be black inside. So like really, you need to be outside to do this. I just couldn't, my screen wasn't visible outside. So you first set your shutter speed with the dial to 1/1000th. Then you're gonna hold the AV plus or minus button down and use that to adjust your light meter now. So we're holding this aperture button on the whole time and adjusting our aperture to fit the shutter speed. And then if it's too dark still, you can either increase your ISO, because you probably won't be able to open up your lens anymore. So you might need to increase your ISO, but just choose a bright sunny day and you should be okay. The other thing I wanted to show you is the shooting mode, which is right here. It's those rectangles that are layered on top of each other. You want to make sure you're in continuous shooting mode so your camera will take pictures really quickly. If you're not in continuous shooting mode, it slows down your shutter speed. So make sure it's in continuous shooting mode. And then I always just get my picture all composed, my camera in the right position, use manual focus to focus the glass or whatever I'm splashing into, and then I can just start splashing without looking through my viewfinder, just hold down the button.